Coming up on Tech News Today, is Apple ripping off Microsoft's design sense? Why Thorsten Heinz thinks the tablet will be dead in 5 years, and Fab gets physical. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, April 30th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by TechServe. TechServe assists U.S. businesses of all sizes with their technology needs, including Apple, Avid, Adobe, and HP solutions. Visit techserve.com/TNT and receive a complimentary iPad deployment assessment. And by ShareFile. Enhance your workflow, send files of almost any size easily and securely with ShareFile by Citrix. Try ShareFile today. For a 30-day free trial, go to sharefile.com, click the radio microphone, and enter TNT. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used Samsung, Galaxy, iPhone, and other smartphones are worth at gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Maya Zakhtar.
I'm Alex Decoupled.
So just Jason Howell back, and we'll have all four of us back together, but happy to have Alex Gumpel filling in for Jason while he's off on baby leave. Meanwhile, we're still going to keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting with the top 10 of the day in the news feeds. 9to5Mac reports several sources say iOS 7, expected to be shown off at WWDC on June 10th, not January, will have a flatter design similar to the Microsoft tiles. Apple also is expected to include new gestures in iOS 7 to access basic information. Don't forget, Johnny Ive took over the interface design for iOS after Scott Forstall's announced departure, so probably no more skeuomorphism.
Jawbone announced it will acquire Body Media, creator of the health tracking devices used on TV's The Biggest Loser. Body Media has been in the business for 14 years and holds more than 80 patents, many involving multi-sensor technology. It's making sense now. Jawbone also announced an app platform for the Jawbone Up wristband.
Speaking with Bloomberg, BlackBerry CEO Thorsten Heinz says that tablets themselves are not a good business model, and he doesn't think there will be a reason to have a tablet in 5 years. It's not known whether Heinz is a genius or whether he's expecting an apocalypse in under 5 years.
For years, the FBI has campaigned for greater wiretap-like provisions regarding internet communications. A law called CALEA gives them access to ISPs in certain cases, but now the agency wants to force web companies to allow the feds to have a back door. The Washington Post cites unnamed administration officials saying that Facebook and Google are being pressured to allow for electronic communications to be intercepted, quote, as they occur. The proposal would make compliance mandatory and be punishable by fines.
Games company Green Heart most recently released an $8 game called Game Dev Tycoon, where you pretend to be a game developer. Very Inception-like, I guess. Where it gets interesting, though, is that the creator, Patrick Klug, also released a torrent of the game with a little twist. After a few hours, players of the torrented version get a sales report saying cracked versions of the game were being downloaded and the company might soon go bankrupt. The irony was lost on some players who complained about the bug on forums. Wait, it's not working.
Bloomberg reports that Nokia will invest in Pelican Imaging to bring more camera power to its Lumia line of phones. Pelican makes software that can handle images made by array cameras. Array cameras use multiple lenses and build images using software. A partner at Nokia Growth Partner says that Pelican has mastered that technology.
Hey, you want to buy an ad on Twitter?
Sure.
Yeah.
Don't have to wait for an invite anymore to spend your money. Kevin Weil, Twitter's senior director of product, announced at TechCrunch Disrupt that the company is opening up Twitter ads to everyone in the United States of America. So open up your wallets, Oosins. Head to business.twitter.com and target some keywords. I'll see you in my timeline. Get really frustrated with you.
If launching the Skype client for calls is just too much for you, Microsoft has you covered. A new version of Skype now works in the browser. Yay, right? More yay-ish. Yay. The in-browser version of Skype is integrated with Outlook.com, Microsoft's browser-based email service. The new service comes to the UK Tuesday, with the US and Germany to follow in a few weeks. and then worldwide availability over the next 4 to 5 months. In other Skype news, a video voicemail arrived on the beta version of Skype for Windows 7, so go put your face in somebody's message box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not annoying either.
Face.
After a hack of the Guardian's newspaper's Twitter account, Twitter has sent an email to news organizations warning them to take precautions like creating strong passwords, limiting who has those passwords, and actually recommending, in one case, limiting the Twitter account to being accessed from one computer. Lots of people calling for Twitter to enforce two-factor authentication.
You want some more investment news? Well, you got it. Intel and Samsung are putting some money into Expect Labs. That's a company that makes an anticipatory computing engine. What's that? The company, the engine listens to conversations in real time, then finds related information before you search for it. So think Google now, kind of like Siri. According to the press release, Samsung's got designs to bring Expect Labs technology to smartphones, tablets, and smart TVs.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by TechServe. TechServe is New York's premier authorized Apple reseller and technology provider, serving creative professionals at all levels. If you're an individual, they can help you out. If you're a Fortune 100 company, they'll help you out too. They do not discriminate on size. TechServe. Carry a full range of Apple products, iPhones, iPads, iMacs, MacBooks, all the stuff you'd expect. And partnerships with top vendors to facilitate flexible, efficient, and creative solutions for all your business needs. So if you've got a big project and you're like, I want to have some iPads, I want to put iPads in a bunch of people's hands, these are the folks to call. For instance, if you've been to the Delta terminal in LaGuardia Airport in New York, or maybe in the YYZ in Toronto, or Minneapolis Airport, you may have noticed every seat in the terminal is equipped with an iPad. Travelers can now sit anywhere in the terminal and get real-time flight updates, order food, play some games, browse the internet, check their email. And TechServe is the company that helped make that happen. OTG Management is the hospitality company behind those terminals, and they turned to TechServe to provide, configure, and install the world's largest deployment of iPads, a number that just keeps growing as they add it to new terminals. TechServe is able to do full lifecycle management for all your technology needs by providing the devices you need, getting them up and running, teaching you and your staff how to use them. Not you're like, I know how to use an iPad, how to use them effectively in your particular situation, and maintain them so they're working. That's important. TechServe also provides ongoing support, so if your enterprise does have a problem, helps just a phone call away. If you're considering adding iPads to your business, why not ensure the project's success with the world's most experienced partner? If your business is considering integrating iOS technology at your workplace, contact TechServe today and receive a complimentary iPad deployment assessment. Visit techserve.com, TechServe.com/TNT. TechServe will help you assess your current or future iPad needs and give you advice to make it a success. That's techserve.com/TNT, and we thank TechServe for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to discuss the stories of the day, very happy to have Stephen Shanklin, senior writer for CNET News, joining us. Usually a Europe resident, but you're in the States today. You're in Detroit, huh?
That's right. It's time for my little annual April circuit, preparing to go out to Google I/O in California in a couple weeks. So
okay. That makes sense.
Tour to the
so
U.S.
The Shanklin America tour begins.
Yeah.
Well, we got some good stuff to talk about today. Let's start with that 9to5 Mac story about Johnny Ive getting rid of the skeuomorphism, making iOS 7, codename Innsbruck, apparently, according to sources, have a flatter design. A couple of things from that story. Loses all signs of gloss, shine, and skeuomorphism seen across current and past versions of iOS, and a level of flatness approaching recent releases of the Metro UI on Windows Phone. Also more glanceable info. So like with the notifications in iOS where you swipe down, they'd be doing that in more cases, maybe a swipe to the right to see running programs or something. If iOS goes a little tile-like, or do you think it'll be different enough that it won't look imitative? Is this what they need to do? Is this the direction they need to go? What do you think, Shank?
I do think that this is a fine direction. So I'm of the belief that there's a huge amount of cross-pollination, idea theft in the computer industry, and I think the idea that company X did it first, company Y is copying it, I think that's overblown. I really think that there's quite a lot of idea lifting all over, and it's kind of unfair to say just because one aspect of an operating system looks like one aspect of somebody else's operating system, it's the idea of copying is overblown. But I do think that it's a great idea to get rid of some of the glitz and sizzle of some of these user interfaces. What happens, I think, in the design world is you get people who do things because they can. So, a new version of Photoshop comes out, and you can clone this and put in lens flare and do all that stuff. And people do it because they can. They don't necessarily do it because they ought to. And I think iOS and Mac OS 10 before it has suffered some of that, where they do stuff because it kind of looked fancy. But now I think people are kind of paring back to a more utilitarian look, and that's good.
I've always been a little bugged by the iOS interface. It always seemed a little bit Fisher-Price, a little bit toy-looking. And I've been waiting to see what they would do when they finally got around to tweaking it. Sarah, what do you expect?
Well, I don't know that I agree with you that it seems sort of kid-like. When you say Fisher-Price, I assume that's what you mean. But I'm also really used to it. So when I hear, hey, let's, where the icons will be flattened, it'll look a lot more like Metro. I think for the most part, people think that Metro's pretty nice looking. I've sometimes had some issue with the various sizes of kind of, tiles and rectangles type of a thing. It doesn't really seem like iOS would go in too much of a random-like look. I see iOS as always being very, very uniform. But flattening some icons, I don't know. I don't really have a problem with that. I think it seems a little bit like, really? I mean, are we really talking about this as if it's a huge deal? I mean, maybe, yes, the leather-bound calendar and the note-taking app that looks like a yellow pad of paper were all sort of introduced when the iPhone came out so that we would all get used to this idea. Look, it's like a calendar, like your old calendar that you had on your desk that was made of paper. Those days are over. We know what that means, right? It's just it's a matter of being able to do our work and sync up programs across the iOS ecosystem. So yeah, if it makes it look more modern, I guess that's the way that Apple's going to go.
Ayaz, what do you think? Are we seeing a good change? Is it time for a change, or should Apple just kind of go slowly the way they have the last 6 revisions?
I think Apple's been going plenty slowly for far too long. When it comes to this Metro style or this flattened style, or maybe even just being typographic based, the thing is the Retina displays on iPads and the Retina displays on their iPhones make it possible to have really sharp text. Originally, why you would bother to have these crazy glitzy icons is so you could identify it on a low-res screen as something you already knew. But now that you can see very clearly text, you can see tiny images on a really high-res display, you don't necessarily need that same of glitz and glamour of this big thing of, hey, this is what this is. You can actually read the text, or you could see a finely drawn image in a very small space.
All right, let's move on to that acquisition that we heard about from Jawbone. They got another wearable tech company, Body Media. I guess that makes sense because they make some wearable tech, right? Like Bluetooth headsets, Jawbone up. But what is this company, Sarah?
So Body Media is about 14 years old, based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, makes health monitoring armbands. I wouldn't say they're, in general, they're a little bit larger than maybe what Jawbone has put out in the past. But Jawbone has acquired the company. The deal is said by parties who are familiar with the matter to be over $100 million. And, this isn't the first company that Jawbone has acquired. They acquired Massive Health. They acquired Vasir. Both of those were mostly talent acquisitions, though. What's interesting about Body Media is not only is it in the wearable tech space, but Body Media has over 80 patents that have been issued over the years, and most of those are in this area of multi-sensor technology. Jawbone has its own patents. Between the two of the companies now, as one big company, they'll have over 300 patents issued and filed. Supposedly Body Media's armbands, if you're thinking, oh man, I really like this company and now it's going to go away, those will continue being sold for the foreseeable future. And the thing about Body Media that is probably interesting to Jawbone, patents aside, is that it's more than kind of the accelerometer technology that we've seen in a lot of these competing wearable armband exercise type technologies. Body Media sensors have 4 different types of sensors. So skin temperature, heat flux, galvanic skin response, also known as GSR, that's a term that gets thrown around now, overall movement. So if you were to incorporate some of this technology in a Jawbone Up, for example, all of a sudden it's a much more robust piece of technology that you're wearing. And Tom, as you mentioned in the news views, Jawbone is also opening up its mobile software to 10 different fitness app makers. So you got Runkeeper. Some of you guys might be using these already. MyFitnessPal, Lose It, why things, Sleepio, and then if this, then that. So you could actually basically add workout prompts for yourself based on the kind of data that your Jawbone or your Body Media device is picking up. So that's pretty cool. I think that probably this makes a lot more sense as far as the patents go. I don't know if Body Media has these patents that are specifically sensor based that Jawbone wants. You could have possibly you could think of this as an offensive move and keep someone like, Apple or Microsoft or any of the plethora of companies that are doing wearable tech from infringing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Jawbone's got to think about their future. And if they have this company and they have this patent portfolio, they could either make a lot of money licensing this out to all these other companies that are trying to get either in the fitness section of it, the smartwatch section of it. But when I'm looking at this thing about picking up Body Media also, I think, does a really great job when it comes to sleep tracking. And the thing is, this has been something missing on certain things like the Nike Fuel Bands. And if Jawbone can have have more, I guess, variation in their devices, because right now it's just the up when it comes to that. And if Jawbone can learn about durability from something like Body Media, if you've ever seen the Body Media devices, they're chunky, they're big, but they don't break as much as the Jawbone stuff. So maybe there's going to be some good information exchange right there too.
Steven, do you think this is a match made in heaven? Jawbone has the sleekness, but yeah, I mean the Jawbone up that I used bricked pretty quickly after I started wearing it. Is Body Media the key to the best wearable technology out there?
Yeah, I think we're getting to the point where we really, the technology is developing really fast here, and anybody who has good, credible technology portfolio is very desirable right now because, the first applications here, the first products have been very narrow, very limited, and I think a lot of what's going to be important is how we put these things all together. So you have, a big suite of sensors all feeding data in. And, I think there's going to be a lot of synchronization and coordination issues with smartphones and with the internet in general. I think we're still, we're not even in chapter one really of this market. So I think at this stage, acquiring companies for their technology and even their intellectual property portfolio, I think that's probably pretty smart.
Tom, Body Media, have you had any experience with wearable technology from Body Media?
No, I haven't, and I don't watch The Biggest Loser either. The thing that does get me excited about this is the Jawbone mobile software. So it's cool that they have Body Media coming. Perhaps we'll have a wider suite of gadgets to choose from Jawbone, but the ability to have more of an open platform. It's not open per se, but a platform that I can use with Runkeeper and Lose It and things like that might get me off of using Nike Plus. I use Nike Plus as my run tracker just because it was the most popular app at the time when I started using it. But I'm locked in. I can only use it and its devices. So this might get me to switch to Runkeeper, which a lot of my friends use.
Mm-hmm.
And before we get any emails, we know that the Fitbit has a bunch of partnerships that are very similar. So thanks.
Thank you for that. Let's talk about Thorsten Heinz. He's going to get some emails for saying that 5 years, tablets will be gone.
Okay, yeah, so we got some quotes in an interview with Bloomberg. Now, right now, the Q10, the BlackBerry QWERTY phone, is out, and so I guess Thorsten Heinz wants to do some talking to the press, and he's talking to Bloomberg, and he's got a couple of quotes. Quote, in 5 years, I don't think there'll be a reason to have a tablet anymore. Quote, maybe a big screen in your workspace, but not a tablet as such. Tablets themselves are not a good business model, end quote. Back in January, Heinz said that BlackBerry will consider a new playbook, that's their tablet, if it could be profitable. And I guess the question that popped in my head when I saw this story, Steve, let me ask you this. Is Thorsten Heinz insane?
I wouldn't say insane, but I would say decoupled from reality. I have no idea where he's getting his ideas. I mean, maybe if he put a qualifier in there, it's not a good business to be in if you're not Apple. Well, maybe that's the case, but I see no trouble with tablets as a business model. You could maybe put some qualifiers in there like, well, maybe he's thinking of a more Microsoft-like tablet approach where a tablet is, some hybridized product that can, become a PC in some circumstances, but I have no idea what he's talking about. Tablets are fine. They're here to stay. They're useful. People use them all the time. Maybe the playbook was a complete flop, but that doesn't mean tablets are.
Tom, could you parse this quote any differently?
Right. First of all, Stephen, I'm going to use that in court. I plea decoupled from reality as my defense. and if we wanted to talk psychology terms, I kind of think Thorsten Heinz might be experiencing a confirmation bias here, which is, oh, the tablet that I was in charge of when I was in charge of BlackBerry didn't do very well. Therefore, tablets are not going to do very well. I really do feel like that's what's going on. Is he's only using the data he knows from the company he worked at, and I don't see tablets in 5 years being gone. Now, to give him the benefit of the doubt, maybe what he's saying is, in 5 years, tablets will be like phones. They will change. They will morph. There will be new versions of them, maybe foldable versions, wearable versions, and the tablet we know today won't be as common. And if that's what he's saying, then that's probably true. Nothing stays the same forever.
But that doesn't mean that they're not a good business model. That means that they'll evolve and become better. I think, Stephen, you mentioned it's not just Apple's game here anymore for tablets, but it's like Apple had this runaway hit when the iPad came out. So then you saw a lot of different tablets, and no other company has enjoyed as much success as the iPad has. So I guess you could think of it in that way as, yeah, well, we can't all have hits, right? But that's just, I mean, it's not as if no one's had success. It's just that it's been difficult to capture quite a bit of market share that was so heavily dominated by Apple, but it is happening slowly but surely.
Yeah, BlackBerry seems to be stuck in a time warp. Like everything they're saying is great for 3 years ago. Like, here's a QWERTY keyboard phone. Here's a touchscreen phone. It's really brilliant. And also tablets, we don't know about that. BlackBerry tried with their playbook. It was the basis of their touchscreen phone, the Z10. So I'm kind of curious why you would think a tablet isn't a good idea when their flagship phone is a mini tablet at this point. I don't really know what the difference is other than the screen size.
It's a phone.
Oh yeah, that's the crazy thing because it's tiny. It's if they make a bigger one, maybe they'll have a phablet. Maybe that's what he's thinking.
It's obviously very large phones. 10-inch phones.
Right. Maybe that's what he's saying. There's not a need for it because our phones will keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm just not sure what to make of Heinz sometimes. This is, but he's getting up there in Eric Schmidt quality of quotes. This is pretty up there.
57 varieties of crazy sauce, Heinz. Let's take a
now you're just trolling for titles.
Thank you for your charitable laughing. Let's take a quick break and thank our other sponsor for today's show. It's not what we do at work, it's how we do it that makes the difference. That's why we're happy to have ShareFile by Citrix as a sponsor. Our flow of information needs to be ongoing, collaborative, and efficient, whether we're working at the office or whether we're on the go. And ShareFile helps you do all of that easily and securely. ShareFile by Citrix seamlessly integrates into your daily routine no matter where you are. Any mobile device, even if the tablet does go away, other mobile devices will be able to do it. With ShareFile, files of almost any size are sent as secure links. That means you get a notification when somebody opens it and you can track their progress. I've found that to be very handy in my own experience. Files can be password protected for ultimate control so that you can make sure that only the person that's supposed to open it opens it. And you can set up shared folders if you're like, actually, I have the opposite problem. I want collaboration. I want clients and coworkers, people who aren't even in the company to be able to see it. You can do that too. ShareFile will change the way you work. To help you get started, we have a special 30-day free trial offer, no obligation. I think you'll see the difference right away. To get our special offer, go to sharefile.com today. Click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and enter TNT. That's sharefile.com. Type in TNT. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All right, let's talk about what Fab is up to. They're doing something that I have been theorizing Amazon might do for a long time.
Yeah, so Fab is interesting because it is a company that has successfully pivoted once from it was basically a gay-focused social network called Fabulous to Fab.com, which is sort of a daily deals site for a variety of goods. So anything from furniture to shoes. I bought some shoes off of Fab once to artwork, that sort of thing. Fab has acquired a company called Massive Concept, a Hamburg, Germany-based startup. So that's... you can read Massive Concept with as much of a German accent as you can. And they sell custom-built furniture online. So the two companies will now merge. Now, the goods will only be available in Europe at first, although Fab says the first store that's going to be a physical store will be based in Hamburg. This is sort of a byproduct of the two companies merging because Massive Concept already had a storefront. But they will test other markets outside of Germany for physical retail stores. They're also launching a new line of products called Exclusively Fab, opening physical Fab stores as part of it too. Fab.com will be expanding into France, previously unavailable there, and then launching a redesigned site with iOS app redesigns coming soon for the iPhone and the iPad. And what's interesting about this is you go, okay, well, Fab is clearly trying to put more emphasis on furniture. Furniture makes up only about 5% of Fab's total sales right now, but the company says the furniture market is ripe for disruption. During the press event where the company laid out their plans and their acquisition information, there were lots of mentions of Amazons and IKEAs and the fact that Amazon was the first wave of e-commerce and that Fab currently sells more products than IKEA, over 15,000 in fact. This is interesting. Stephen, do you see Fab having stores across the world and an online component? I mean, to me, that sounds almost like a more successful Pottery Barn model than an Amazon model.
You know, it's funny. I think if you look at the world of commerce, here's what this reminds me of. You remember when Dell was the bomb and it was the greatest computer maker ever, and they bragged so much about their direct sales model where they didn't have all these resellers in the middle, mom and pop stores and, brick and mortar companies. Amazon is kind of like that. It does really well where you don't need to show up in a store and, feel the goods and see if the wood looks cheesy or really, high quality. I think there's a place in the world for brick and mortar, for real stores where people can get a feel for it. I think furniture is a great example of that, where you can't tell from a picture this big on your screen whether that lamp or that table is high quality. So I think brick and mortar has a real place for things. And if you do it in partnership with some kind of online sales component, I think it can work out really well, because then you have people testing it, seeing what they like, and then they maybe do the order fulfillment later on online, or they liked it the first time around, so they trust it. So the next time they don't bother with the brick and mortar trip. So I think it's a little silly to call Amazon some also ran some relic of the first age of e-commerce. That's obviously extremely silly. But I do think there's a place in the world for brick and mortar. Now, the concept of customizing all your products, I think there's a finite appetite for that. People will buy some packages, some options packages, maybe with their cars, or they, buy the high-end, middle-end, or low-end iPhone. But I don't think people want to constantly be specifying everything about their clothes or their furniture or whatever it is. So I think that's fine, but I don't think it's a way to get ahead.
As Tom mentioned earlier, this is something that he could see Amazon doing, getting more into the retail business. We've talked about that in the past. Is there something that Fab has figured out? Is it because they would have all exclusive, not just furniture, but designs in general? I mean, there are a lot of things you can get on Amazon that you can get at your grocery store as well.
Amazon pretty much has one of every single thing you want. To Stephen's point, I'm starting to think that I just furnished a place, and sometimes I'm looking at couches, and I want them to be either slightly smaller or slightly larger. There's something about being in a store, trying out how they are, and then say, you know what, could you make that about 80% the size of what you have, or make that larger? Because furniture is a hard sell in general. There's all of this tactile sensation of sitting in the actual chair, trying out the fabric, seeing what it looks like in certain lights, and unless you have a color calibrated monitor, you just don't see that in real life. So I think for a company that makes custom things, it might be intelligent. Amazon doesn't need anything like that, because it's not just a custom thing. They have everything. And by keeping a small selection and theoretically customize things for certain people, I think this makes more sense than Amazon going into the retail space.
Tom, do you see Amazon making their own exclusive sectional couches? Or is this just a market that Fab is going to corner here?
That's a really interesting question, because I agree with Shank, and I agree with Ayaz as well, that you don't want too much choice, but you want some, right? In fact, one of the best experiences I had was buying a couch in January when we moved into this new place, and we went to a custom shop, but they had models out, and they're like, basically, tell us which model you like, and then tell us the measurements you need to fill. So it was the best of both worlds. We didn't have to come up with the couch from the ground up. We picked a color, we picked a size, and then he asked us a couple of questions. It's that kind of personal interaction, though, that makes that work. So I don't know if you can translate that to the online experience. And it certainly isn't fit with Amazon's way of doing things, which is algorithm everything, right? I definitely could see Amazon coming up with some kind of physical presence, but it's probably not this.
Here's another thought I had on this matter, which is the idea of Amazon's profits. Now, the company, gets by on famously lousy profits. Their revenue keeps growing like mad, but their profits don't keep growing like mad. I honestly, I don't see this. I don't see customization as really being a great fix to that particular shareholder problem, because if you do a lot of brick and mortar and you do a lot of customization and a lot of salesperson involvement, that high touch kind of marketplace, that seems really out of step with Amazon. I'm not convinced they do really well with it. I guess maybe they preserved some of that with Zappos, but it doesn't seem like it's their thing, and it seems like it's low volume, high touch sales. Maybe you get a higher profit per sale because you can charge this big premium, but it seems to me Amazon's way of doing things is to go after the volume and not to go after a high end niche. You can buy expensive things there. You can buy $7,000 SLRs and $10,000 lenses and stuff like that, but that's just one product in a box. So that's much easier, and I see that as a more plausible direction for them to try to plump up per product profit margins.
I've always thought Amazon would do something where the physical store is just an easier way to get the thing that you ordered from them, rather than a store with like you say, like high touch service. We talked earlier about Yahoo and their exclusive deal with NBC and speculated maybe that was a way towards more video, because we knew Yahoo was wanting to do more video, and now they've announced more video. Ayaz, what have they announced?
Yeah, they are going to introduce 6 new original web shows this year. I'm only going to spotlight a couple of them. The nerdiest one has to be Tiny Commando, which is created by Ed Helms with Zachary Levi of Chuck fame and Jillian Jacobs. It's about a 4-inch tall private investigator who fights crime. That's one. There's a talk show called
4 inches? Did
4
you
inches.
say?
Yes, because he's Tiny Commando.
He's tiny.
Right. Hence the title.
Mighty.
There's a talk show with the title "Losing Your Virginity with John Stamos."
Oh.
Hang on. John Stamos interviews celebrities about their first sexual experiences in this show.
Oh, they're not losing it to John Stamos.
That would be a different style of programming, I would think, for Yahoo.
Just wanted to make sure.
That's a Yahoo pivot, I would think. Yahoo also announced partnerships with ABC News for news programming, Condé Nast for lifestyle video, CNBC for finance news, and the WWE for the soap opera known as professional wrestling. Stephen, what do you think about Yahoo still being in the original content game? Is this something they should be doing?
Yes. I think people have been struggling with this idea since the Terry Semel days, maybe before that. Is Yahoo a technology company? Is Yahoo a content company? I don't think that the company need be exclusively one or the other. They might have kind of an identity crisis trying to figure out how much of Google they should be, because Google's all over the map too. But I don't see those two directions as mutually exclusive. And frankly, they still have huge audience. They have a lot of people going by their website, and I think if you're in that situation, then online video, online TV shows makes reasonable sense. One of the downsides is you risk alienating a lot of partners who have their own online video, but we've seen with Amazon doing this and with Netflix doing this that there's an increasing tolerance for the online companies to produce their own video. So I think the stigma attached to that is getting lower. And frankly, I think that we're still kind of in the early days of this recognition that the means of distributing content, video, or whatever it is changing dramatically. The cable TV companies, the studios, and people like that, they're still kind of living in an older world. Once you have the internet, distribution becomes very difficult. So I think I'm not going to predict success for any of these TV shows, but I think Yahoo, it's fine for them to go into the original content business. It's a good way to get potential loyalty, to get people coming back to their site, and for them to actually do something that people want that doesn't just date from the days of Rocket Mail in the 1990s.
Sarah, do you think there's going to come a time when people think, I want to watch some online video, I'm going to Yahoo and not YouTube?
Yes. All we need is for Losing Your Virginity with John Stamos to be a hit, and all of a sudden people think of Yahoo as a place that original programming can thrive. This is the same way that I feel about Netflix, and we've seen this actually work well with Netflix recently. It's the same way I feel about Amazon. If quality content exists. It's not hard to access. You can see it for free, with some model that's, easy to acquire. Then people will watch and they'll talk about it and they'll share it with their friends. Look at Uncle Jesse. Like, he's great, right? I don't know. I'm probably gonna watch that show just because I want to see the train wreck that is the content of that. But yes, Yahoo has just as much success potential with original programming than a lot of the other companies that are doing the same thing right now.
Tom, when you think Netflix, you think video, obviously, because that's what they used to do, and that's what DVDs and in streaming. Amazon does everything, including video. Yahoo seems to do kind of everything, but nobody seems to know exactly what they're doing. Do you think you're going to start thinking video with Yahoo?
I don't have anything much more to add to what these guys have said. I think they've made all the important points regarding Yahoo getting into this game. I'm just happy to see another entrant in it. It's the Cambrian explosion of online content. This is the follow-on effect of the established industry resisting putting their content online. Is you're going to see everybody else getting into the game saying, we got some money, we can fund a production, we can get some names, let's do this, since the big companies that have been doing this for decades won't allow their content online. There's a big market. Let's take advantage of it. So you do see Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, Crackle. You see all of these companies getting into it, some backed by the industry, some not. Yahoo's been after this for a long time. They've been doing original programming. They were doing original programming, back in 2010, 2009, even earlier. So this isn't new for them. It's just new to be getting into it at this level. And I think that's great. I think it's cool.
And I definitely think this opens up more opportunities for companies like CanIStream.it to find where all this stuff is. If things are on YouTube, Yahoo, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, because they're all doing independent content, I want to be able to find it at some point. So if you're out there, Can I Stream It? Catalog all of this. So now you're there.
Let's finish up with a great Ars Technica article that Casey Johnston wrote about characters in your passwords. We've kvetched about this at different points a lot. The fact that one place only allows like 6 characters, and you're like, that's not safe. You need more characters than that. Another place won't allow special characters, and Steve Gibson's always saying you got to have special characters if you want to keep this safe. So Casey Johnston looked into it and asked a few companies, why do you have your passwords policy set this way? For instance, Microsoft only allows 8 to 16 characters. They say password length doesn't stop most attacks. Phishing, malware, the people reusing their passwords, it's not really worth the effort to allow large passwords because of that. Also, password validation isn't centralized across projects. So even if they decided to allow larger passwords, it would be a lot more work than just changing one piece of code. They'd have to change it in a lot of different places. Evernote, 6 to 64 characters, but they don't allow spaces because they say some of their UI frameworks and third-party applications unreliably trim spaces and others don't. So trying to code to test for that doesn't make sense. They say the 1.5% entropy increase in allowing spaces isn't worth the tripling of effort in code. And then I think the most interesting was AT&T, which is 8 to 24 characters and no symbols. They do allow an underscore and a dash, but no other symbols. Also, they don't allow swear words, Casey found out. They say customers didn't like typing symbols when using mobile phones, so we just said no. Stephen, do you think any of these reasons are sufficient for going against what is often recommended for safe password practice?
I'll tell you one thing, which is that I look at all these details. It's clear that there's a lot of angst about getting the programming right. Clearly there's just, any number of custom spaghetti code out there that each company uses, varying levels of reliability and security and all. That's fine, but I look at this huge spread of different ideas, and it's so clear to me that the password system is just profoundly broken. It's so not scalable. I don't know. I probably have 500 passwords now that I've accumulated over the years. Some of them I'm very religious about changing and being very secure about. Some of them date from 2002, and I'm never going to touch them again. The password system is not good, and this I think is a great synopsis of all the little ways it's broken. Passwords aren't going to go away anytime soon, but I think we will see more reliance on central authentication mechanisms, whether that's Facebook or Google Plus or something on Microsoft. I think that's the direction that we're going to be going. And those outfits are going to do a very good job. They'll be linked to all kinds of online activity, and they'll do the heavy lifting of dual factor authentication and smartphone apps that help you sign in and all those things. And I don't think it's ever going to be easy dealing with authentication, but I think today's nightmare is going to gradually be replaced by something slightly more sane.
We got an email from T2T2, and we were talking about the Living Social hack. He said the reason that they protect credit card information better than passwords is because of PCI compliance. Nothing like that for passwords. That's an interesting thought. And he echoed some of this Ars Technica article saying if they're using MD5 to hash their passwords, it's probably because when they started, MD5 was accepted and they just don't have the coding resources to go back and change it. And third, why can't everyone just outsource their authentication to other sites? What you're talking about, Stephen. Over the weekend, when I signed up for AirDroid, I chose to log in with Google, and right after that, it asked me to choose a password. That's part of the problem right there. Ayaz, what do you make of this? Is this just, like Steven says, just an example of password system is just purely broken?
Well, I think that one of the weird things is that when the password system was set up, I don't think this was meant for everybody who did email and who did their banking online. Now that everybody's online, this has to be taken seriously at some point, because it's ridiculous when I run into that limitation of no special characters in this. I'm like, you're protecting my money. You should be able to put an asterisk in this. I don't know what the big deal is. I have found that when I moved from my laptop to my mobile device, trying to find the special characters is a pain, but then you end up using something like LastPass or something, a cut and paste kind of thing. But you can figure out ways around this. If it means slight inconvenience for more insecurity, you might want to go with the inconvenience.
I think the two-factor thing is it would help me out a lot. Not that I use the same password everywhere, but there are variations of the same password that I've gotten used to. And it always blows my mind. Well, I type in a password and it's like, oh, that's too many characters. I mean, it's like, they limit it at like 8 characters or something. Or they require you to capitalize something that you wouldn't capitalize. There are all these different rules for what essentially might be the same password for a lot of people, which I think just turns into an inconvenience, not even really a security measure.
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing that really upsets me is when you're trying to follow good password security and they say, no, we actually don't allow good password security here because it's just too difficult. People just don't like typing symbols into their mobile phones. So forget security for the moment. All right, let's move on to the randomizer. 20 years ago today, CERN issued the protocols of the World Wide Web that have been created by its employee Tim Berners-Lee as public domain. A big decision that allowed the World Wide Web to grow and foster. Stephen, you wrote an article about this today on CNET, kind of celebrating the effects of that.
Yeah, I think, it was a pretty, forward-looking move. Now, granted, this is CERN, a nuclear physics research laboratory. This isn't, some technology company trying to maximize shareholder value. So they have a very different way of looking at what's good to do and what's not good to do. But, just like TCP IP won out over Token Ring and DECnet and IPX, SPX from Nova, all these proprietary network protocols, they're history. The one that won was the one that was open and anybody could implement it freely and it got deployed at scale, and that was the internet. Then you got the same thing happening. Chapter 2 was the web, and it was because it was free for anybody to implement. It spread like wildfire, and now we have the web. The angle I took on the story today was that there are some areas where we have proprietary technology creeping onto the web, namely video, especially if you've got some DRM technology as Adobe's Flash gets kind of re-implemented in the browser. And then we have proprietary codecs, H.264 and maybe H.265 later. So those are kind of proprietary, patent-encumbered, royalty-bearing technologies, and that means that they won't spread as fast. That means if you're a startup or a school or somebody trying to self-publish, you have potential barriers in the way that a lot of web publishing hasn't had in the past. So that's kind of, I think, where things are shifting today. The web is now big enough and has enough vested commercial interests that it's kind of hard to do everything in that freewheeling way of 20 years ago. But I do think CERN had a lot of foresight when they did that 20 years ago to release it in a non-patent encumbered way.
Yeah, they could have kept it to themselves. They decided that they didn't really want to manage it. honestly. They just wanted to use it. Part of the celebration is they have taken the original webpage, which had been preserved at w3.org, and they have put it back at its original domain name, info.cern.ch, and they're going to run it off of I don't know if it's the actual original server or if it's just a rebuild of the kind of server that it was used on when it first ran. So if you go to the info.cern.ch version, it runs a little slower than the one at w3.org. We'll put links to both of those in the show notes. Not exactly the birthday of the web, though. Birthday was in November. This is the day they made it public domain so that anybody could implement it. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Gazelle, the fast and simple way to make some dough off your old gadgets. You want that new Samsung Galaxy S4? Just came out. You want the HTC One, huh? Maybe even an iPhone 5. Well, before you upgrade, make sure you sell your old gadgets and get some cash. Don't say, that sounds like a lot of trouble, Tom. I'm just going to throw it in a drawer. Or I'm just going to throw it in the garage. No. Don't do that. Go to Gazelle.com. You'll see how easy this is. GAZELLE.com. Tell them what condition that your gadget is in. Be honest. They'll buy broken iPhones and iPads and get a risk-free offer for your gadgets. You're like, well, I'm not ready for that. Do it now because you get 30 days to send them your gadget. 30 days to get the new phone, get everything in place. They'll even send you a box. And then you'll get paid fast by check, PayPal, or Amazon gift certificate. In fact, you get a 5% bonus with that Amazon gift certificate. So don't delay. Go to Gazelle.com now. Get an offer for your Samsung, your iPhone, your HTC phone, your BlackBerry smartphone. Do it today because your gadgets may lose value every day that you wait. What's your iPhone, Samsung, and other Android smartphone worth? Take a minute. Go to Gazelle.com and find out. Sell your used Samsung Galaxy or iPhone today at Gazelle.com. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Sarah, it's good to have you back. What's on the calendar?
Good to be back, gentlemen. You know, you might remember last year a Verge reporter by the name of Paul Miller quit the internet for a year. Remember that? Well, that was a year ago. He's coming back to the internet tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. It's kind of fun. It'll be live, streamed live. We'll see what he does first. Facebook and Yelp both have earnings reports tomorrow. That's May 1st, and the original iPhone is finally going to be shelved forever starting June 11th, 2013. Yep, you can actually get one until, well, you still can. You just have a very limited time still. June 11th is when it is retired forever. It's very tired, actually. The start button doesn't work anymore.
You can't even put iOS 4 on it.
No, yeah, bad camera. It's horrible.
Let's see what's incoming instead.
Incoming message.
Got a voicemail from David. We were talking about how Apple and Google have kind of broken up. Their relationship has become complex, and David likes that. Why do you like that, David?
Hi, TNT. David from Brisbane here. Yesterday you were talking about Apple and Google's complicated relationship. And as a faithful iOS user, I don't want Apple and Google to work any closer together. I like the distance between the two companies. Google's apps for the platform right now are great. And if Apple had a larger hand in them, I can only imagine them being much worse than they currently are. All I want is for Apple to open up the system just a little bit, give me the ability to pick which apps are my defaults, and then leave me alone. And if nothing else changed in iOS 7, if nothing else changed, just that, I would be over the moon. Thanks for the great show. Sent from my iPhone.
Thanks, David. I think I'd be over the moon with him. That actually is one of my biggest gripes as well about iOS. I'm with you, David.
We got an email from Chimera. It says, hey, TNT team, I was struck by the pessimism that surrounded the topic of unifying these different messaging networks. I couldn't help but think that all of this has happened before and it will all happen again. It really wasn't that long ago when users of Genie, AOL, Prodigy, and CompuServe could only email other users on the same service. Two-way SMS between the top U.S. carriers wasn't fully implemented until 2002, and MMS messaging would take another 2 to 3 years after that. In time, as the Internet of Things takes hold, the idea of a phone number becomes antiquated. Having a standard that allows for seamlessly getting these messages on the nearest screen, whether it's my phone, my watch, or my coffee pot, will become the market force, I hope. I'd rather not have a Facebook coffee pot.
I wonder if instant messaging, text messaging, whatever you want to call it, is going the way of email, like he's talking about, where the standard outcompeted the private versions of it, or if it's just going to continue to be fragmented. Stephen, do you have a perspective on that? Do you have a prediction?
I do. I'm a pessimist here. I think that it's going to be maybe not perpetually fragmented, but what we've seen is there was never a standard for instant messaging. AOL Instant Messenger, AIM, Yahoo Messenger, and then MSN Messenger. All these different services bubbled up. They never worked out together. And because there was no single service, well, then Facebook could launch Facebook Messenger, and WhatsApp could launch WhatsApp. And that's, if there were one giant standard like email, then I don't think these new little fragments could show up on the web and gain a foothold and gain a social graph. And I think that the fact that it is fragmented is why, absurdly, that it will remain fragmented. So I'm not actually very optimistic about that. I actually think the letter is pretty astute. I think what's going to happen is we will have our identity will be larger than one username or one account, and that messages will get routed to us via whatever protocol or whatever app, whatever software. I think it will work at a higher level, but fundamentally, I still think all that instant messaging, text messaging fragmentation is going to continue. I don't think anybody has the market clout to it's not going to be FaceTime or something like that wipes all the others off the map. It's just too fragmented. So I think we'll have to see a solution at a higher level.
Damn it. I think you're right, unfortunately. It gives me a headache thinking about that. Well, we can dream. That's it for this episode of Tech News Today. Stephen Shanklin, thank you so much for joining us during your U.S. tour. Let folks know where they can find your work online, what you're working on over there at CNET.
Yeah, sure. I'm at news.cnet.com is the best place to find what I write. Working on some coverage about the future of cars right now, the Internet of Things, and high-definition audio. Going to be poking some holes, bursting the bubbles in the glorious high data rate ideas that are floating out there on the web. People who would like to shoot down the audio quality of the CD.
It's good stuff. News.cnet.com. Also, folks, if you would like to submit stories, maybe you read one of Stephen's stories, you want to make sure that we see it and include it in the show, go to our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. It's where you can submit story ideas and vote on them. It is the preferred way to suggest a story to Tech News Today. You can find us on the web anytime of day or night. twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call. Leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. We'll be back tomorrow with an all-new show and Veronica Belmont as our guest. See you then.